Today I'm going to show you how to take cuttings from a grapevine. This section of growth is about 2 years old. So what I'm going to do, the first step, is I'm going to long pencil thick piece of cutting running right up the grapevine. I want it about pencil thickness. Each of my cuttings will be about 3 to 5 nodes long. So I'm going to cut this whole branch off just past a growth point. So this growth point here should produce new growth from there. So what I'll do now is remove the rest of this stretch of grapevine so that I can prepare it for cuttings. You'll notice that my grapevine at present doesn't have any leaves on it because my grapevine is dormant. The best time to take cuttings from your grapevine is during winter. This long stretch of vine will get me about 3 to 4 cuttings. Don't be concerned if you see some drips of moisture coming from where you've taken the cutting from on your plant. This is called bleeding in grapevines. It is just occurring due to water moving through the plant or being ready to move through the plant as it's needed. That water contains some minerals and nutrients as well that the plant will need and transport throughout it. So this will occur at the site of the cutting, but it is nothing to be concerned about. So what I've got here is my long stretch of grapevine. The first task, once you've cut your grapevine from the branch, is to go through and remove any extra tendrils or branches along your straight section of vine. So when you take your cuttings, you want 3 to 5 nodes on each cutting. So as I go through, I'm cut above a node, which is a growth point, and this node is the top. I'm going to cut on an angle at the top so I know whether my vine is up the right way. So then I count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to take this cutting after the 4th node. So I cut square across the base just below the last node on my vine. And that's what my first cutting looks like. For your next cutting, cut above your top node on an angle so you know which way is up. Count down the nodes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got that extra one there, but we'll take the cutting at the base again. Square across the bottom. Repeat this for your 3rd cutting. Once you've done the 3rd cutting, the leftover part of this grapevine will be used as a dibbling stick. So all you want to do is use your pre-existing or your leftover piece of grapevine that you didn't use for your cuttings to dibble a hole into your pot. So I've dibbled this hole about 7 or 8 centimeters long. I'll do the same in the next pot. We don't want to go all the way to the bottom, and that 3rd pot doesn't quite have enough potting mix. So all I'm going to do now is I've got my 3 cuttings. I know which way's up based on the cuts that I've made on these cuttings. So these are my angled ends, so I know they're the tops. So I'm going to put some rooting hormone on the base of these 3 cuttings and then pop them in the pots. So I'm just using rooting hormone. All I'm going to do is place the base of my cutting in the rooting hormone, and the value of placing the base in, so it should promote root growth at the bottom. Because I've pre-dibbled the hole, that rooting hormone won't wash off as I place it in the pot. I'm just going to gently place it in the hole. You can see the top of my cutting is that angled cutting, or the angled cut, just on the top, and the value of the angled cut was to tell us which way was up on our cutting. So I'm going to repeat that process with our next 2 cuttings. So we have our cutting sitting in the pot. What I'm going to do now is push the soil in around. So we want the soil up nice and close around the base of our cutting. So the purpose of the soil right up against the base is to make sure that there's a constant flow of water in the pot. So if the bottom of the cutting isn't in direct contact with the water supply, then that cutting is going to dry out and it's not going to take. Do the same with our second. Just going to push in nice and firm around the base of our cutting. So these 2 cuttings here, as long as I now keep them damp, these 2 cuttings should take. So here's the final results from our cuttings. So we only put it up 3. Normally you'd put at least 3 in one pot, and you'd have multiple pots. So I have no need for multiple grapevines, so I was just running through how I do it and just playing. If you do that, there's a little video on splitting up and potting up mulberry cuttings, which would be the same process that you would use for grapevines. Once you start to see roots appear at the bottom of your pot, then it is time to plant these out or pot them up onto a bigger pot. Make sure you, if you've got any questions, make sure you pop them down below, and make sure you like and subscribe to the video.